Final Resolution. Final Resolution took place this past weekend on Impact Plus. It was an Impact Plus special event. Of course, it wasn't a pay-per-view. The next pay-per-view for Impact Wrestling is Hard to Kill in January. It was pre-taped as well. It was taped as part of those Mammoth TV tapings a couple of weeks ago. So this has been in the can for a little while now. But we had some very interesting and noteworthy things happened coming out of the show. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the title changes that took place at the show and the surprises, because there were quite a few of them. Quite a few noteworthy events happened. So let's get straight into it as to the big major talking points coming out of Final Resolution. The first one being Larry D going to jail. Now, Larry D faced Tommy Dreamer in an old school rules match at Final Resolution. Now, in the closing moments of the match, Larry D's Triple XL partner, AC Romero, he got involved. He attacked Tommy Dreamer from behind. Things were looking bad for Dreamer when who else but Johnny Bravo made his way to the ring in an attempt to make the save. Of course, Johnny Bravo was shot by Larry D as part of the Who Shot Johnny Bravo saga that was going on in Impact Wrestling. So the match then ended with Dreamer hitting Larry with a kendo stick for a low blow. This was followed by the DDT for the victory, and Tommy Dreamer defeated Larry D in the old school rules match. And then after the match, Tommy Dreamer placed handcuffs on Larry D, and they're headed to downtown because, of course, the stipulation going into the match was that if Tommy Dreamer won, Larry D would be going to jail. If he didn't, he would be exonerated because, of course, that's how the legal system works. You settle it not in a court of law, but you settle it in a pro wrestling match inside of the Impact Zone. That's how these things work out. Now, I would assume that going forward, probably on the next episode of Impact Wrestling, we're going to probably see some form of a vignette, a pre-tape or something along those lines, where we actually see Larry D in jail, where we actually see Tommy Dreamer take Larry D to jail and actually book him in to the jail. I don't know how long he'll be in there for. I would assume he's probably not going to be on TV now, maybe, at least until the next set of TV tapings when he'll be freed from jail or something like that. He'll get a good attorney. I don't know. I don't see this angle ending, though. I think most people might have seen this as a bit of a bookend. Larry D goes to jail, Tommy Dreamer moves on, that kind of deal. I don't see that. I think, if anything, it's just probably starting, because now we're going to get even more shenanigans with Larry D in jail. We might even see some cameos from people whilst he's serving his time in jail. I don't know. It's going to be something like that. As far as this whole Who Shot Johnny Bravo angle, I was into it for the beginning, in the same way that the comedy for Wrestle House back in this the fall, back in over the summer, I was into that. I thought it was well done. Again, the comedy was maybe too much, but I thought the story there was good, and I thought it was a really compelling way to tell stories in the current climate. That transitioned into the Johnny Bravo and Rosemary wedding, which I also enjoyed. I thought that was well done. I know this whole comedy stuff isn't for everyone, and that's fair enough. The thing with pro wrestling, it's all about tastes and genres, and this is certainly a genre that Impact has carved out for itself. It's certainly a weird and strange niche, isn't it? But I've enjoyed that part of it. The wedding itself, I enjoyed. The Who Shot Johnny Bravo angle, I enjoyed. The detective stuff about trying to figure that out, I enjoyed. What I haven't enjoyed now is the reveal of Larry D as the shooter. I kind of felt like that was a bit anticlimactic. What were we really expecting, though, I suppose, because it was always going to be strange. It was always going to be off the wall and unique, and that's kind of the point of this angle. Nevertheless, I found that Larry D being revealed as the shooter was a bit underwhelming, and the fact that this storyline is now continuing on, look, Impact is going to continue doing this comedic stuff, doing this strange, off-the-wall, unique comedic stuff, because I think they found that going all the way back to Wrestle House, and even further than that, if you want to go and talk about the Rosemary Sue Young stuff way back when, their off-the-wall, outside of the box, as it were, content, they've always kind of done that for the last few years, so I don't suspect that they'll stop anytime soon. I just don't think I'm really invested in this storyline anymore. I think it's kind of jumped the shark. I think that maybe they're stretching out a little bit too long. As far as the match was fine. It was never going to be a classic. Again, I just think about the story that's going to be told now. What's the story? What's left to be told? It's going to probably be Larry D's experience in jail, whatever that is, and Tommy Dreamer taking him there. So I don't think it's going to be over yet, but it was an interesting development in the story nevertheless. Another surprising thing was Sami Callihan's attack of Eddie Edwards and his wife Alicia. Now, the fact that Sami Callihan got involved in this wasn't that surprising at all, really. Now, obviously, at the show, it was Tenille Dashwood and Kayla with a K facing off against Alicia and Eddie Edwards. Now, during the match, Eddie Edwards dove to the outside onto Caleb with a K. Now, Alicia was perched on the top rope when Sami Callihan made a surprise appearance. Tenille Dashwood managed to capitalise off this distraction, hit a spotlight kick to get the victory for Dashwood and Caleb with a K. Now, after match, this is when the real drama happened because Callihan assaulted Eddie Edwards with the Callihan Slugger, followed by a vicious package piledriver. Callihan then attempted to piledrive Alicia Edwards, but luckily he was prevented from doing so by security that hit the ring. So, as I mentioned in the preview and predictions, this storyline, this angle with Sami Callihan and Eddie Edwards is far from done. I would assume they're probably going to have the grudge match, either Genesis or Hard to Kill, in January. My opinion hasn't changed on it. You know, I thought the angle was good at Final Resolution. I thought it was well done. I thought the tease of hitting the package piledriver on Alicia was well done. I thought the security getting there was good. It was meant to shock the audience at home, and it probably did that. And it's meant to portray Callihan as this vicious, crazy, you know, take no prisoners. He doesn't care if you're a man or a woman kind of deal. All he cares about is inflicting the most pain on Eddie Edwards as possible, even if that's physically or emotionally. My opinion hasn't changed though when it comes to this angle with Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan. We have seen it before, and the whole point is that there is a lot of history here. My only concern is we're revisiting this again, and it kind of feels like we've revisited this a couple of times at this point. And I worry how much story is left to tell. Now, in pro wrestling, there's always more story you can tell. It's just a case of should you tell it. Now, of course, after Callihan has assaulted Eddie Edwards several times with a baseball bat and cut open his eye again, and Eddie Edwards is now sporting the cut and the shiner and all that kind of stuff, look, the story's going to continue at least until Hard to Kill, I would have thought, in January. They're going to have some form of a blow-off match. Sami Callihan, obviously there was discussion about his contract. Sami Callihan is expected to re-sign. We did a video on that last week, so that's why Sami Callihan is going to be more featured. Of course, another factor that plays into this is that Ken Shamrock is going to probably be returning soon. He's suspended, but he will be returning soon, so of course Shamrock will play into this. Again, I just worry, what more story is there to tell? You know, yes, the history is there and the rivalry is personal, but that was the case prior and beforehand. You had Eddie Edwards versus Shamrock. That was at Bound for Glory in October. And again, it kind of felt like then, well, they are revisiting the story, but it's different because it's Shamrock versus Edwards. Now, this is just Callihan versus Edwards once again. And that's not to say that the angle wasn't good on Saturday, because it was good on Saturday. I did enjoy it, and I enjoy the work of Sami Callihan and Eddie and Alicia Edwards. Nevertheless, again, I just think maybe they need to venture off into doing different things once again. But it looks like this is going to be an angle and storyline that persists until January. Then I think we'll have the blow-off, probably at Hard to Kill, and then we'll move off into another direction. Now, going into Final Resolution, I mentioned that I felt that they should do something AEW-centric to help hype Impact Wrestling on Tuesday. Now, obviously, I said this before Kenny Omega's return for Impact on Tuesday was announced. Nevertheless, I still felt that they should do something AEW-centric to continue the hype, continue the buzz, and try and get the ratings still up there for Impact on Tuesday. Heck, maybe even improve them, go higher, whatever. I felt that they should have something AEW-centric on the show involving Kenny Omega, and quite frankly, why wouldn't they? They were filming with Kenny Omega and Don Callis for about a day, so why not film and shoot multiple promos and then splice them into Impact, Final Resolution, upcoming episodes of Impact on Access TV, maybe even Genesis in January, depends on the taping schedule. So I was very glad to see that that's exactly what they did, and we had Kenny Omega reuniting with Carl Anderson on his bus outside of the Impact Zone. Now, during this segment, actually prior to it, we had Gia Miller. She knocked on the door of Kenny Omega's luxury bus. Don Callis, the Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President, he answered, tells her she wouldn't be speaking to the AEW World Champion tonight. Gia then asked if Omega will get involved in anything that happens at Final Resolution. Callis said he's not going to allow Kenny Omega even in the building. He's simply there to meet with family tonight. That family was Carl Anderson. They reunited. And essentially the segment was Anderson talking to Omega and Callis and reminiscing about previous times in New Japan, and essentially Don Callis and Kenny Omega saying we want to see the real Carl Anderson tonight in your match against Ethan Page. We want to see the machine gun. Now, I'm going to do a much further and more in-depth breakdown of this segment, Kenny Omega's appearance on Tuesday, because we do have some latest reports about what's planned for Tuesday and the future, quite frankly, for Kenny Omega in Impact Wrestling. So I'm going to save that then for that video, so be sure to check that out. Nevertheless, though, I did really enjoy the segment, and I'm really glad we did see something AEW-centric. Of course, it makes the most sense. I've mentioned it before when it comes to Impact. You continue with what's working, what's getting buzz, and that is Kenny Omega in Impact Wrestling. And it was very nice to see an interaction between one half of the Good Brothers, previous members of the Bullet Club, in Kenny Omega and Carl Anderson, so I very much enjoyed that. But let's move on from Kenny Omega and talk about Hernandez. What a gear change that is. And obviously, Hernandez faced Fallah Final Resolution, and this was hopefully going to be the end of the whole is Hernandez going to get his money back situation. But unfortunately, that storyline is continuing, because even though Hernandez defeated Fallah with Kira Hogan as special referee and Tasha Steelz as the ring announcer, post-match, Hernandez demanded that he get his money back after defeating Fallah, but Tasha claims to have lost it, and then Hernandez chased them to the back as the saga continues. Now, I spoke about previously with Sami Callihan and Eddie Edwards about continuing on with this story, what's there left to tell. I spoke about Larry D and Tommy Dreamer going, they're stretching this story out probably too much. It's the same here with this Hernandez money deal. This is a spin-off of the whole Johnny Bravo saga. This is a spin-off of the Johnny Bravo Rosemary wedding. This is a spin-off of the Johnny Bravo Who Shot Johnny Bravo angle. And again, on the preview and predictions, I said that I felt that this was going to be a bookend match. I felt this was going to be at the end of the storyline. Hernandez was going to win. He was going to get his money back and he was going to move on. I really was struggling, to be honest, to care about this angle anyway. I think most people will. I mentioned about comic relief with the Tommy Dreamer Larry D match, but now I'm really struggling to care about this story because it's just... It's done. It's been stretched out too long, and I criticized WWE for the same thing, whether it's the Seth Rollins Rey Mysterio storyline or the Mysterio family storyline, and I'm still criticizing it with the Murphy and Aaliyah Mysterio aspect of that storyline, that it's a spin-off of that storyline, and it's stretched out and it's overdone. No one really cares for it. And it's the same here with this Hernandez money saga. This storyline has no business going this long. It really doesn't. The reason I think it's going this long is because they had to do so long TV tapings that I suppose you can only do so many stories and focus on so many stories, especially when you're taping in such a long length of time, that they just go, you know what, we'll just continue with this Hernandez Fallah money storyline because it gives them something to do and we can focus on the main event angles, and especially people leaving, Ethan Page, etc., possibly Taya Valkyrie. We need to focus on that. So when it comes to writing the shows, just carry on doing that story. But I just don't care for it. I really just don't care for it. I think it's done, and I'd rather them see them do something else, to be honest. So the match itself was fine. It was always going to be fine, but I thought that this was going to be the end of the story, and it just doesn't look like it. It looks like that story is going to be continuing. Now, speaking of surprises, we spoke about we were going to talk about title changes and surprises. One big surprise at Final Resolution was Cody Deaner attacking his cousin, because during the Rhino versus Eric Young match, we had a real shocking turn on family. Now, in the match, Rhino inadvertently whipped Eric Young into the referee, so we had a ref bump, and the match begins to break down. The Deaners then made their way out to ring, and Cody pries Eric Young's hockey mask out of his hands, but then in a shocking turn of events, Cody yells, "I'm not a nobody," and hits his cousin Jake over the head with it. Moments later, Eric Young hit Rhino with the mask to steal the victory, so Eric Young won the match, but I suppose people were talking about Cody Deaner turning on his cousin. What does this mean? Well, the way that it was shot to me, given that Cody Deaner hit his cousin with the hockey mask, he had a bit of a brief stare down with Eric Young. Eric Young had a big grin on his face. So to me, it looks like that Cody Deaner is joining this startup Eric Young stable, as it looks like. Eric Young is definitely forming a stable. It doesn't look like that it's just going to be a situation where Eric Young has Joe Doring as his bodyguard. It looks like Eric Young is forming a stable in Impact Wrestling, which is very interesting. If you know me and you know my comments about Impact Wrestling and about AEW and just in general here on the channel, you know that I'm a big fan of Faction. So it's different, it's new. I think it's interesting that Joe Doring and Cody Deaner are kind of sort of similar sort of characters, in the sense that of the, Joe Doring's got the cowboy hat and Cody Deaner's kind of portrayed as the redneck, that kind of deal, and it looks like maybe Eric Young's associating himself with those types of people, which is very interesting. It's certainly an interesting way to go for the Eric Young character. as far as the attack, didn't really see it coming. I don't think many people saw it coming. Will be interesting to see what his cousin does now. Do I really want to see the Dinas feud with each other? I don't really care for that. What does pique my interest, though, as I mentioned, is this Eric Young faction. What does that mean for Eric Young going forward? And as I mentioned previously when talking about Eric Young, look, he had a fantastic year in Impact Wrestling. At a period of time, Eric Young was the hottest guy in Impact Wrestling. He was the top heel in the company. He was doing the best work. When he returned at Slammiversary, he hit a home run, and then for week after week after week after week, he hit home run after home run after home run. He was just fantastic. He was the best on the mic. He was so good they had to make him the Impact World Champion. I don't think that was by design. I think they realized, oh my gosh, Eric Young is doing unbelievable work. This Rich Swann storyline is so hot. We need to give Eric Young the World Championship, and we're going to have this Bound for Glory main event. So Eric Young was doing fantastic work, and my concern was coming out of Bound for Glory after he lost the World Championship and then lost again to Rich Swann the following episode of Impact was, what next? As a pro wrestler, that's what you need to always be thinking. Okay, what next? CM Punk stated it a million times during his run with WWE. If you can't be content with the feud you're in, you need to always be thinking what's next. And that's what I was thinking about Eric Young coming out of Bound for Glory. Okay, Rich Swann's going to move on, but what next for Eric Young? He's got all this momentum. He can't just stop and not do anything and fall by the wayside. They've built a character here. And with the addition of Joe Doring, that was interesting. And I was a bit like, I don't know a lot about him, but it's interesting. And now possibly with the addition of Cody Deaner, looks like to have a faction. It fits this new Eric Young character. It fits this character perfectly. This bit of the world-class maniac, but he has got this psychotic element to him, but he's very well calculated, and he is playing chess when others are playing checkers. And I like that about this version of Eric Young, with a little sprinkle of craziness on top of it. And it's very interesting. So it has piqued my interest. Again, I don't have really any interest in the Dinas facing off. What I do have interest in, though, is this Eric Young faction. So we'll have to see where that carries on in the future. Now, I spoke about title changes. We did see a title change at Final Resolution. We have a new X Division champion in Manic, because, as I mentioned on the preview and predictions, I won't give myself full credit because I didn't predict that Manic was going to come back. We did actually have a comment on the channel. I wish I had the name off the top of my head, but we did have a prediction that Manic was going to win the X Division Championship, so well done to you, whoever predicted it. But I did predict that whoever did answer the challenge would defeat Rohit Raju for the X Division Championship. That's exactly what happened. Now, obviously, the storyline going into this was that TJP is unable to challenge for the X Division Championship, while Manic, it's TJP. Josh Matthews even noted that it was TJP underneath the mask. He said that TJP was ineligible to answer the challenge after Rohit defeated him, but he never said anything about his alter ego Manic, so they are acknowledging that it is TJP under the mask. It's pretty difficult not to. The guy's got a lot of tattoos, I mean, says me, but he's got a lot of tattoos, and it's pretty difficult not to say that it's him. And I feel like in 2020, the whole idea of the guy under the mask that everyone knows who it is, but we're going, oh, it's definitely not him. Oh, it can't be him when we know it's him. It's played out. And look, there's enough comedy on the show at the moment. If it's not with Tommy Dreamer and Larry D and with Hernandez and Falabar, it would have been just maybe too much comedy if we'd have had Manic come out and then pretend it's not TJP. So they're saying it's TJP. It's obvious that it's TJP, and even on commentary they're saying it's TJP. They're just saying it's an alter ego. Similar, I suppose, to The Fiend and Bray Wyatt. They're not saying that they're completely different people. They're saying it's one and the same. Jeff Hardy and Willow's another good example. But you never said TJP. You said TJP, you never said Manic. I'm excited to see the return of Manic. I always enjoyed the Manic character. Of course, it was kind of a spin-off of the Suicide character at one point. And we even had TJP actually get a mask in Impact Wrestling back in the day when Austin Aries stole the whole Suicide mask. You remember that? And he got revealed in Bully Ray and Hulk Hogan, that kind of stuff. I like this new look for Manic, and I think Manic made an appearance earlier this year with Impact Wrestling as well. My thoughts on the X Division haven't really changed that much. I still do think we need more bodies in there, and I still do think we need more of a hybrid style in there. I mentioned before about Willie Mack that I thought he was so good as an X Division champion because he encapsulates everything that the X Division should be, in the sense that it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits. I know that was just a catchphrase, but it was so true, and Willie Mack really encapsulated that. I still do think we need more names in there. We haven't seen anything of Ace Austin recently, and personally I would think he should be in the main event scene, but if you're not going to use him, he needs to be back in the X Division. Then use him, put the belt on him, do something with him. You know, Ace Austin versus Manic, that's a feud right there. That's a money feud. Obviously, there's this talk of a AEW crossover as well, and maybe some talent going back and forth. Get some of the AEW talent that's maybe not being featured, put them in the X Division, right? I mentioned before about Pac. I'd love to see Pac as the X Division champion and then be carrying that around AEW. So there is still work to do, I think, on the X Division at the moment. But Manic, I'm interested in this. Again, I just hope they don't play the angle for comedy. It doesn't look like they are, so I'm pretty cautiously optimistic with that one. And let's talk about the North and Ethan Page. Again, like we did with Kenny Omega and Kyle Anderson, I will be doing a deeper dive into the status of Ethan Page after the result at Final Resolution. But Ethan Page did lose to Kyle Anderson at Final Resolution in the co-main event. Now, of course, going into the show, the stipulation was that if Ethan Page won, the North would get a future Impact World Tag Team Championship opportunity, but it didn't happen. So what happened in the closing moments of the match, Ethan Page countered the gun stun into a scoop slam, easy for me to say, for a 2 count. Josh Alexander then attempted to get involved in the match, but Carl Anderson saw it coming, knocked Alexander off the apron. Anderson then connected with the gun stun on Page for the victory, and then post-match, Ethan Page pleaded. He pleaded with Josh Alexander that he has a plan despite them not earning a future shot at the Good Brothers Tag Team Championships. Josh Alexander was none too pleased by this whole situation. He removed his North jacket before walking up the entrance ramp alone. Ethan Page, and after the match, was assuring everyone, the world at home, he was looking into the camera saying everything's fine and he has a plan. Again, I will talk about this in way more depth in a video to drop later today, so be sure to check that out. But it's the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the end for Ethan Page, and it's the beginning of the end as it comes to the North in Impact Wrestling. We know the situation right now when it comes to Ethan Page. His contract is expiring. Come January 1st, 2021, Ethan Page will be a free agent, and it has been reported by the likes of Fightful that he's not expected to re-sign. We don't have an update as to where he's going, but it looks like Ethan Page is doing his final rounds in Impact Wrestling, and that's going to play out over the next couple of weeks on Impact Wrestling TV. It was one of the scenarios that I suggested going into Final Resolution, that we could see Ethan Page lose, and we'd basically shoot this breakup over the North over the next couple of weeks, and that looks like what we're going to see going forward. So I'm sure Ethan Page does have a plan, but it's going to be the end of Ethan Page and the North and Impact Wrestling coming very, very soon. And finally, let's talk about the World Championship main event. I do want to, before I get into what happened after the match, I do really want to single out Rich Swann and Chris Bay for praise, because, man, what a great main event. What a great main event, and what a monumental moment. I mentioned this in the preview and the predictions that prior to this, the only World Championship main event, pay-per-view main event in recent pro wrestling history that was headlined by 2 African-American black males was The Rock and Booker T. That was at SummerSlam in 2001. 2001, 19 years ago, and prior to that, just hadn't happened in major pro wrestling promotions, which, quite frankly, is a disgrace. I guess that is quite... it's so badly reflective on the business, and people can say that there are not issues there, but I mean, the fact that we're in 2020 and this is only the second time that this has happened, it's quite disturbing, to be honest. But nevertheless, it was incredibly inspiring. Chris Bay's been sharing messages that he's received saying that the fact that there were two African American men fighting it out for a world championship in a main event has helped inspire them. So credit to them, and regardless of any of that, they put on an absolutely fantastic match. But Rich Swann retained, and it was after the match that really got people talking, because after the match, self-proclaimed TNA World Heavyweight Champion Moose confronted the Impact World Champion Rich Swann and handed him his title before leaving the ring. So this is kind of looking like it's going to go the way that I'd predicted, in the sense that Rich Swann looks to be facing Moose at Hard to Kill in January for the Impact World Championship. That, to me, has always been the plan since coming out of Bound for Glory. If you look at that Impact Wrestling on Access TV episode post Bound for Glory, Moose confronted Rich Swann backstage, and over the last few weeks we've seen Moose have matches with Rich Swann's best friends, Willie Mack. We've also seen him attack Willie Mack on several occasions. We've seen him start to get involved with Rich Swann. We've also seen him say some disparaging things about Rich Swann. So this match has been building for a long time, and it looks like we're going to get Rich Swann versus Moose Hard to Kill for the Impact World Championship. What is interesting now is how does Kenny Omega fit into this, because I feel like it's inevitable. It's inevitable, right? That Kenny Omega will be facing Rich Swann at some point. And I think it'll be for the World Championship. So how does that fit into all of this? Because it looks like they're still persisting with Rich Swann versus Moose for the World Championship, but Kenny Omega also looks like he wants to collect that Impact World Championship as well. Do they make it a triple threat match? It looks to me like they're trying to keep these AEW and Impact storylines relatively separate, but there is a bit of crossover in the sense that Kenny Omega is on Impact, but he's not really interfering in Impact storylines per se as of yet, but Rich Swann is kind of going back and forth between Kenny Omega and Moose. So it's very fascinating, very interesting, but nevertheless it was an absolutely phenomenal main event, and it certainly is a story we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to going forward. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Final Resolution, specifically the title changes and surprises? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, NXT, all things pro wrestling. Get involved with the community, share your opinion. There is no opinions that are not welcome here on the channel, so get involved. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.